Imagine the sun sinking behind the stone towers of a medieval castle, while the last orange light of evening slides across the battlements like a fading flame. The air is turning colder now, and somewhere beyond the walls, the forest is already disappearing into darkness. Before we go any further, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it there? And if you enjoy quiet history stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Whispering Historian now. Come closer to the fire. Because tonight, we are not visiting a castle during a grand feast or a battle or a royal wedding. We are here for something much quieter, something more ordinary, more intimate, and maybe more revealing than any tournament or siege. Tonight, we're going to sleep in a medieval castle. Not in the way tourists imagine it today, with polished stone floors, warm lighting, clean beds, and carefully restored wooden furniture. We are stepping into a real castle, centuries ago when the walls were cold, the halls were smoky, the floors were scattered with rushes, and the night outside was full of sounds you could not always explain. By day, a castle could seem powerful. Its towers rose above the land like a warning. Its gates were heavy. Its walls were built to resist fire, arrows, raiders, and armies. To travelers on the road, it might have looked like the safest place in the world. But when night came, safety did not always mean comfort. A medieval castle after sunset was a different creature. The courtyards emptied. Servants hurried through shadowed passages with candles and oil lamps. The smell of roasting meat faded into smoke, damp wool, old straw, sweat, horses, dogs, candle wax, and stone. Doors were barred. Gates were shut. The watchmen climbed to their places along the walls. And inside, one by one, the people of the castle began preparing for sleep. But sleep in a medieval castle depended very much on who you were. If you were the lord or lady of the castle, sleep might come in a private chamber, beneath heavy blankets, inside a carved wooden bed with curtains drawn around it. If you were a noble guest, you might be given a decent pallet or a place near the fire. If you were a servant, a guard, a kitchen worker, a stable boy, or a messenger passing through, your night might be spent on a bench beside a doorway near the animals, or on straw laid out in a crowded hall. There was no single medieval bedtime. There was only rank, duty, season, and luck. So let us begin at the top of the castle, where the important people sleep. The Lord's chamber is not as large as a modern bedroom, but it feels grand compared to the rest of the castle. The walls are stone, thick and cold, but they are partly covered with tapestries. These are not just decoration. They help keep out drafts. They soften the echo. They bring color into a world that would otherwise be gray, brown, and shadowed. In the evening, the chamber glows with candlelight. The light is not steady. It trembles on the walls. It catches on metal cups, carved chests, folded cloth, and the edges of a wooden bed, and the bed is the most important object in the room. A good medieval bed is not just a place to sleep. It is a sign of status. It may be large, raised from the floor, built from heavy timber, and hung with curtains. These curtains are not there only for beauty. They trap warmth. They offer privacy in a world where privacy is rare. They keep away some drafts, some insects, and perhaps the eyes of servants moving in and out of the room. The mattress might be stuffed with straw, wool, feathers, or a mixture depending on wealth. A rich household might have soft linen sheets, blankets, fur coverings, and embroidered textiles. But even then, by modern standards, the bed may feel strange. It may smell of wool, smoke, bodies, and herbs used to keep away pests. It may creak loudly with every movement, and it may not belong to one person alone. Medieval people often shared sleeping spaces. A noble couple might share the main bed. Children, attendants, or servants might sleep nearby. A trusted servant could be expected to remain close in case the lord or lady needed anything during the night. Privacy, as we understand it, was not common. Even in the private chamber, you were rarely truly alone. Before sleep, servants helped prepare the room. One might bring warm water for washing, another might carry away dishes or arrange coverings. Candles are checked. The fire is built up, though. In many rooms, the heat will not last until morning. A chamber pot is placed where it can be reached in the dark. Clothing is folded or hung The bed curtains are drawn, and then the castle begins to settle, but not into silence. That is one of the first things you would notice if you try to sleep there. A medieval castle at night is never silent from outside. You might hear the wind moving over the battlements. If the castle stands on a hill, the wind may strike the walls with a low, steady moan, wooden shutters rattle, loose hinges complain. Somewhere, a door slams shut and echoes down the corridor from below. You may hear dogs shifting in their sleep, horses stamping in the stables, a guard coughing, boots on stone, the distant scrape of a chair being moved in the hall, someone laughing softly, someone praying, someone muttering in a dream. And from the walls, if you listen long enough, you hear the watch. The men on guard do not sleep like the rest of the castle. They stand in the cold. They look out into the darkness beyond the walls. Their job is to notice movement where others see nothing. They watch the road, the fields, the tree line, the river crossing, the village below. A castle at night may feel secure, but fear is always part of the architecture. There could be thieves, raiders, wolves, enemy scouts, fire, betrayal, disease, a messenger arriving with bad news, a servant slipping through a door that should have been barred. So the sleeping castle is never completely asleep. Now imagine you are not the lord. Imagine you're a guest. You have arrived late in the afternoon after a long journey. Your cloak is damp. Your boots are muddy. Your horse is tired. You're grateful to be inside the walls before dark. Hospitality mattered deeply in the medieval world, especially among people of rank. If you were important enough, you would be given a place to sleep that matched your status, but that did not always mean comfort. You might be assigned a small chamber, perhaps shared with other travelers. You may sleep on a wooden bed if you're fortunate, or on a pallet laid over straw. Your blanket might be warm, but not perfectly clean. The sheets, if there are sheets, may have been used before. The room may be drafty, especially near arrow slits or poorly sealed shutters. And then there are the insects. We should not romanticize the medieval night too much. Fleas, lice, bedbugs, and other pests were common problems. People did what they could. They used herbs, changed bedding when possible, aired cloth, washed linens if they had the means. But a castle was full of bodies, animals, straw, wool, stored food, and dark corners. It was an easy place for small biting things to thrive. So even in a noble bed, you might wake scratching. The bedding itself might hold old smells, smoke from the hearth, sweat from previous sleepers, damp from the season, lavender or rosemary if someone had tried to freshen it, dust from the tapestries, the faint sourness of rushes on the floor. If this is winter, the cold is your first enemy. Stone does not become cozy easily. It holds the chill. The fire may make the room pleasant for a while, but once it burns low, the cold begins to return. It seeps from the walls. It gathers near the floor. It finds your feet first, then your hands, then your nose you curl beneath blankets. You pull your clothing close. You may sleep in a linen shirt, perhaps with a cap on your head. People often cover their heads at night because so much heat escapes there, and because the air indoors could be bitter. In the very cold months, bed curtains are a blessing. They make a small room within the room, a warmer little tent of cloth and breath. Inside, the air becomes still. You can hear your own breathing. The outside world becomes muffled. But if the room is smoky, the curtains may hold the smell, and smoke is everywhere. Many castle rooms have hearths, but chimneys in earlier periods are not always efficient. Smoke does not always go where people want it to go. It can drift across rooms, cling to hair and clothing, blacken ceilings and sting eyes. Even in later castles with better fireplaces, the smell of burning wood remains part of the night. Imagine lying in bed while the fire collapses into embers. The chamber fades from gold to red to black. The last candle is pinched out. The darkness becomes thick, not modern darkness today. Even when we turn off the lights, cities glow. Devices blink. Street lamps seep through curtains. But in a medieval castle, when the candle is gone, darkness is almost complete. Your eyes adjust slowly. Shapes appear, The bedpost, the chest, the curtain edge, the low red pulse of the fire. But beyond that, nothing. And in that darkness, every sound grows larger. A mouse in the wall sounds like a thief. The wind sounds like whispering. A horse stamping below sounds like someone knocking. Far away, a guard calls to another guard, and the sound travels strangely through the stone. If you were used to this life, maybe you would find it normal, maybe even comforting. But if you came from our world, that first night would feel ancient in your bones. Now let us leave the noble chamber and move downward toward the great hall. The great hall is the heart of the castle. By day and evening, it is where people gather, eat, argue, receive visitors, listen to music, hear news, and conduct business. It is smoky, noisy, and alive. At night, it becomes a dormitory. The fire in the central hearth or fireplace may still be burning low. The tables may have been moved aside, or people may simply sleep wherever space allows. Servants, lower ranking retainers, guards off duty, boys, travelers, and sometimes even dogs stretch out across benches, pallets, mats, or straw. The floor is covered with rushes. These are reeds or straw-like plants spread across the floor to absorb dirt, spills, and smells. Sometimes herbs are mixed in to make the air sweeter. But rushes can also hide crumbs, bones, insects, and old filth if they are not changed often enough. So when you lie down, you're not lying on a clean carpet. You're lying in the lived-in remains of castle life. The great hall at night is warmer than many chambers because many bodies share the space and the fire may be larger. But it is also crowded. Someone snores. Someone coughs. Someone rolls over and kicks you. A dog noses at your blanket. A servant rises before dawn and steps over sleeping bodies to begin the morning work. There is very little privacy here. If you need to change clothes, you do it discreetly. If you need to relieve yourself, you find a chamber pot or go where the household expects you to go, perhaps to a garderobe built into the castle wall. A garderobe is a small toilet chamber, often with a seat over a shaft that drops waste down into a pit or outside the wall. It is practical, but not pleasant. In summer, the smell can be powerful. In winter, the seat can be shockingly cold. And walking to it at night means carrying a candle through stone passages where the air may be damp and the shadows uncertain. A castle corridor after midnight is not like a hallway in a modern house. The floor may be uneven, steps may be narrow, doorways may be low. The candle flame may bend in drafts you cannot feel until they touch your face. You might pass a sleeping guard, a storage alcove, a locked door, a chapel entrance, a stairway curling upward into darkness. And always stone. Stone under your feet. Stone at your shoulder. Stone holding the cold. Stone carrying echoes ahead of you. Now imagine sleeping as a servant. Your day has been long. Perhaps you began before sunrise. You carried water, chopped wood, stirred pots, cleaned vessels, tended fires, brushed clothing, fetched messages, helped in the kitchen, cared for animals, or served at table. By the time the castle sleeps, your body is already heavy. You may not have a bed. You may sleep near the place where you work. Kitchen servants might sleep not far from the kitchen. Stable workers may sleep near the horses. Some household servants sleep in shared rooms or corners of the hall. Your bedding may be simple, straw, a coarse blanket, perhaps your own cloak. You do not undress completely. It is too cold, and you may be called at any hour. If the Lord wakes and wants something, someone must answer. If the fire needs tending, someone must tend it. If a horse grows sick, someone must notice. If an alarm is raised, everyone must move. For lower servants, sleep is not a private retreat. It is a pause between tasks. And yet, even there people made comfort where they could. A folded cloak becomes a pillow. A warm place near the wall becomes your place, though it belongs to no one. Friends whisper before sleep. Someone tells a story. Someone shares a crust of bread saved from supper. A kitchen boy listens to the older servants talk about ghosts, saints, soldiers, bad harvests, and strange lights seen over the marsh. History often remembers kings and battles, But most nights in the castle belonged to tired people trying to rest. And what about children? Children in the medieval castle did not sleep in brightly decorated rooms full of toys. Noble children might sleep with nurses, servants, siblings, or attendants. Their beds might be better than those of common people, but childhood was still watched closely. Babies needed warmth. Small children needed supervision. Older boys being trained for service might sleep with other youths in shared spaces. At night, they would hear the same castle sounds: the fire, the dogs, the wind, the footsteps, the bells. A castle child might know every creak in the floor, every strange shadow on the wall, every story about the locked tower room or the ghost of some long dead lady said to walk near the chapel. Were medieval people more afraid of the dark than we are? Perhaps not. They were more used to it. But they also lived in a world where darkness had meaning. Night was associated with danger, temptation, spirits, thieves, demons, illness, and uncertainty. Prayers before bed were not just habit, they were protection. Before sleeping, many people prayed. In a noble chamber, the lord or lady might kneel before a small devotional image or cross. In the chapel, a priest or chaplain might keep certain hours. In the hall, ordinary people might murmur a prayer beneath their breath. The day ended not with scrolling, not with television, not with electric light, but with the awareness that night was something to be entered carefully. You asked for mercy, you asked for safety, you asked to wake again, because waking was not guaranteed. Illness could come quickly. Fire could spread. A siege could begin. A child could fever. A rider could arrive at the gate with news that changed everything. So sleep carried the spiritual weight. Now let us think about the seasons. Sleeping in a medieval castle in summer was very different from sleeping there in winter. In summer, the castle might be more breathable. Shutters could be opened. The evening air might carry the smell of cut grass, warm earth animals, and river water. The great hall might feel less brutally cold. People might sleep lighter, with fewer coverings, but summer brings flies, mosquitoes in wet areas, stronger smells from waste pits, kitchens, stables, and bodies. Food spoils faster, the rushes sour faster, dogs scratch, people sweat. The air in a crowded hall becomes thick. The noble bed curtains, so useful in winter, may feel stuffy in summer. But leaving them open invites insects and removes privacy. In winter, insects may trouble you less, but cold dominates everything. A winter castle can be beautiful from outside. Snow on the walls, torches burning near the gate, smoke rising from chimneys, the tower windows glowing like small stars inside. It can be miserable. Water freezes, breath fogs in corridors. Servants rise in darkness to break ice, carry fuel, and wake fires from embers. The chapel is cold. The hall is cold until the hearth grows strong. The stairwells are colder still. Sleeping close to others becomes practical. Bodies create warmth. Animals create warmth. Thick wool becomes precious. Fur-lined coverings, if you have them, are treasures. But not everyone has enough. A guard on the wall in winter may stamp his feet all night to keep feeling in them. A servant sent across the courtyard may return with wet shoes and numb hands. A traveler sleeping in the hall may wake stiff and aching. Even the Lord's chamber may be cold enough that getting out of bed feels like a small act of courage. This is where the romance of castles begins to fade. We imagine towers, banners, candlelight, and noble beds. But the real castle is also damp socks, smoke in your throat, fleas in the bedding, chamber pots, freezing floors, and the constant labor of people keeping everyone else alive. Still, it was not all hardship. There could be beauty in the night. Imagine lying in a curtained bed while rain taps softly against the shutters. The fire has burned low, but the blankets are warm. Somewhere in the distance, a guard's voice rises and falls. A dog sighs near the hearth. The castle timbers settle. The wind moves around the tower. You are inside walls that have stood for generations. Your grandparents may have slept here. Your children may sleep here after you. The stones hold stories. Every doorway has seen births, deaths, secrets, feasts, quarrels, and returns from war. In a world without modern security, thick walls mattered emotionally. They did not guarantee peace, but they created a feeling of being held. And for many people, that was enough. Now picture another night. The castle is not peaceful. There are rumors of conflict. The gate has been barred early. Extra guards are posted. The Lord's men speak in low voices. Servants move quickly, sensing tension. The dogs are restless. You lie down, but sleep does not come easily. From your bed, you hear movement in the courtyard, armor shifting, a horse snorting, men climbing steps to the wall walk. The firelight flickers behind the bed curtains, and every sound makes you listen harder. Medieval castles were built because violence was possible. Even in peaceful times, their design reminded everyone of danger. Narrow windows, heavy doors, murder holes, portcullises, towers with views over the land. A castle was a home, but it was also a machine for survival. Sleeping inside one meant trusting that the walls, the guards, and the household hierarchy would protect you until morning. But if an alarm came, everything changed. A bell might ring, a horn might sound, someone might shout from the walls. Men would rise from benches and pallets, dogs would bark, servants would rush with lamps. The Lord might be armed quickly. Women and children might be moved to safer inner rooms. The hall that had been a sleeping place would become a place of movement and fear. So even sleep had a military edge. Now let us return to an ordinary night, because most nights where ordinary supper has ended. The great hall is dimmer now. The last conversations fade. Someone banks the fire. Someone gathers cups. The floor is swept roughly. The dogs find warm spots. The castle's important doors are secured. In the chamber above, the lady of the castle sits while a servant loosens her hair. Hair care matters. Clothing matters. Presentation matters. Even at night, rituals remain. The Lord speaks quietly with a steward, perhaps about rents, repairs, a dispute in the village, a hunting party, or a letter received from another noble household. Then business ends. The day's authority softens into fatigue. The bed curtains close. In the hall, a young servant pulls his blanket over his shoulder and tries to ignore the smell of the dogs. Near the kitchen, a girl who has spent the day carrying water curls beside another servant for warmth. In the stable, a boy sleeps close enough to hear the horses breathing. On the walls, the watchman looks out over the dark countryside. The village below has fewer lights than you would expect. Perhaps only a few hearts glow. Beyond that, fields, beyond the fields, woods. Beyond the woods, roads that vanish into blackness. The watchman knows the constellations. He knows the sound of foxes. He knows when the wind changes. He knows which shadows are trees and which might be men. His sleep will come later, if it comes well at all. Inside, time passes differently at night. In the Middle Ages, people did not always sleep in one unbroken stretch the way many of us try to do today. Some people may have experienced what historians often call segmented sleep. A first sleep, then a period of waking in the night, then a second sleep. During that waking time, people might pray, talk softly, tend the fire, check on children, or simply lie awake in the dark. So if you woke at midnight in a medieval castle, you might not think something was wrong. You might hear others awake too. A servant stirs the embers. Someone whispers. A baby cries briefly. A guard returns from watch, and another takes his place. A priest may rise for prayers. A sick person groans. A door opens, then closes. Night is not empty. It has its own rhythm, and the body adapts. After some time, the strangeness becomes familiar. The mattress no longer feels quite as hard. The smoke no longer smells quite as sharp. The castle sounds become a kind of lullaby. Wind, fire, animals, stone, breath. But then comes one sound that almost everyone in the castle understands. The bell, depending on the household, the nearby church, or the castle chapel. Bells may mark religious hours, wake the community, or signal the beginning of morning tasks long before the sun is fully up. People begin moving. Servants rise first. They do not wake slowly. They get up in the cold. They shake straw from their clothing. They fold blankets if they have them. Fires must be revived. Water must be fetched. Bread must be prepared. Animals must be fed, floors must be cleared, the lord and lady will need attendance. The castle transforms again from sleeping body to working body. In the noble chamber, waking is more gradual. A servant may enter quietly. The fire is stirred, clothing is brought, water may be warmed, curtains open, gray morning light enters the room. The bed that seemed like a warm refuge now becomes a place to leave reluctantly. Outside, the sky is pale, the stones are damp, smoke begins rising again. Someone in the courtyard calls to another. A cart creaks near the gate. Chickens, dogs, horses, and people all return to the business of living. And you realize something. Sleeping in a medieval castle was not simply about having a bed inside a fortress. It was about living inside the whole social world. Every sleeping place told you who someone was. The lord in the curtained bed, the lady with attendants nearby, the guest on a pallet, the guard on duty, the servant in the hall, the stable boy beside the horses, the child under blankets near a nurse, the priest rising before dawn. A castle was not one household in the modern sense. It was a layered community, a place of power, labor, fear, warmth, smell, hierarchy, faith, and survival, and night revealed all of it. By day, people performed their roles. Lords gave orders, servants obeyed, guests displayed manners, guards stood visibly, cooks shouted, horses were saddled, messengers arrived, but at night, bodies became honest. Everyone needed warmth. Everyone feared sickness. Everyone listened to strange sounds in the dark. Everyone hoped the walls would hold. Everyone from the highest noble to the youngest servant had to surrender eventually to sleep. That is the quiet truth of it. A medieval castle may look like a symbol of strength, but at night it was full of vulnerable people. People with cold feet, people with aching backs, people whispering prayers, people scratching at flea bites, people dreaming of home, food, love, war, harvest, death, or the dead people waiting for morning. So if you could spend one night there, what would you remember most? Maybe the cold stone beneath your hand? Maybe the smell of smoke woven into every blanket? Maybe the feeling of bed curtains closing around you like a small private world? Maybe the sound of boots passing outside your door? Maybe the distant bark of a dog from the courtyard? Maybe the way darkness filled the room after the candle went out? Or maybe you would remember the strange comfort of it. Because despite the discomfort, there is something deeply human about that castle night. No electricity, no screens, no engines, no modern noise. Just fire, breath, weather, animals, and stone. The world becomes smaller, the room becomes closer. The night becomes something you can hear. And perhaps after a while, you would stop comparing it to the comfort of your own bed. You would stop thinking about clean sheets, central heating, soft pillows, and quiet walls. You would simply pull the blanket higher, listen to the wind against the tower, and let the old castle breathe around you. Somewhere below, the last servant finally lies down. Somewhere above, the watchman turns his face from the window. Somewhere in the hall, a dog dreams beside the embers, and outside the walls, the medieval world waits in darkness. The roads are empty. The fields are silver with frost or wet with rain. The forest stands black against the sky. The village sleeps under thatch and smoke. The stars, if the clouds have cleared, are sharper than anything we see now. Inside the castle, one candle still burns. Then it is covered, the flame disappears. And for a few hours until the bell, until the footsteps, until the first grey light of morning, the castle is not a fortress, not a court, not a symbol of power. It is only a shelter. Cold, crowded, smoky, imperfect, but shelter all the same. And in the Middle Ages, that could mean everything. I hope you've fallen asleep by now. Sweet dreams, and see you in the next video.